Please welcome back Stephanie Spray and Pacho Velez. I'll start by asking you to just tell us a little about how the film came about, why Nepal, how you found the cable car. Stephanie, I know that you have made a series of short and medium-length films in Nepal over the last few years. Maybe you could say a bit about how Manakamana came about.
Sure. Before we started shooting and collaborating, I was working in a village from which you see a number of passengers who are from that village, and I had already made several pieces in that village with the same people, and everything was pretty predictable for me in shooting, and started looking for different interventions that could be made. And the Manakamana cable car is, every Nepali knows about it and dreams of going. So went there just thinking it would be part of something else, but it was so fantastic and cinematic that it just screamed film. So that's, yeah.
And then how did the collaboration between the two of you come about? And maybe you could both talk a little bit about figuring out the formal structure of the film using a fixed camera, and Pacho.
So a lot of my work prior to Manakamana was around themes of performance and different sorts of documentary fiction hybrid kind of work. I was doing it at film school at CalArts, and I was offered a position at Harvard, and I came back, and Stephanie and I had known each other for about 5 years at that point. And Stephanie was in the city, I was in the city. We went, we had a drink, and we got to talking about this cable car. And we, one thing led to another, and 5 months later, we were there shooting a film.
Can you say a little bit about the process of selecting or perhaps even casting your subjects?
So Stephanie and I think, have slightly different views on it. Little bit. I can describe the actual process of it. We went to a number of villages, one village around the cable car, and Stephanie had been working with many of the people in this village for a long time. Together, we sort of hung out, I think is the right word for it. We got drunk and danced a little bit, and just had a good time.
You did. Just kidding. Sorry.
And just met people, and with the idea of finding people who would be excited to take this ride with us. We also met people at it sounds like we did a lot of drinking. We met the rock stars, the rockers at a local bar. They all have a bar band. They do very, very good covers of the Rolling Stones.
AC/DC.
And AC/DC, yeah.
And is it true that you have a slightly different view of the casting process?
I don't know if there's a different view of the process. Some of the people I have long-term relationships with.
They've been in your earlier films.
And been in earlier films, known them 11 years, 10 years. The three women, the older women, two of them have adopted me as their daughter. And they're co-wives. They are co-wives. So I spent a lot of time with them, either shooting or doing just deep hanging out, which we could also call ethnographic work. But so I think the process, he's right on. It's just, I think we see them in different ways, which I think is super helpful for the film. I have this kind of myopic view. I see them and I think of, how they cook, or I think of things that they've said, and my memories of them, past films, and it's all, I don't see them any other way. I see this kind of depth, and that can get in the way, obviously, of filmmaking too. So I think it's just different ways of relating with the people. But Pacho was able to see them, I think, in terms of, I mean, do you want to talk about, I mean, you think of it as kind of like, well, we both did this in terms of casting. We would go to their homes, and in some cases we'd say, could we see your hats? And we would, you know, say, this hat looks really nice on you. Could you wear this for the ride? But, you know, it was fun and collaborative. I mean, they were also giving us suggestions about what they would want to do, and so.
Yeah, I think that there's a way that what you're seeing are these 10-minute performances. These people know the camera's in front of them. They've on some occasions been filmed before. They're very, in some ways, they're very savvy about their images and what they're doing. And this is what they've chosen to give us, as well as what we've asked for. And it's sort of this complicated negotiation between the two of us that you're seeing on screen in this very, hopefully, sort of low-key but engaging way.
Other questions? All the way at the back, I see a hand.
I was wondering what were your artistic objectives or goals when you started out making the film? Do you think you've accomplished that?
The question is whether the filmmakers had artistic objectives in mind.
What were they?
I think we were thinking all along of portraiture and landscape. We were thinking about histories of cinema, ethnographic, structuralist as well, experimental, documentary. So I guess if there's an objective, it was maybe to undermine or play with these different ways of thinking about documentary, ethnographic film, et cetera. So we're thinking about histories of cinema. The camera that we used was also used by Robert Gardner, who made a film called, for the film Forest of Bliss, which is shot in Benares in India. And none of the people that you see are subtitled. You see a lot of Hindu ritual, and it's you're completely mystified, and it seems barbaric at some points. And we were thinking about how could we portray some of, you know, a culture of going to the temple, but in a really different way. So in terms, and going back to the question about artistic objectives, so there's thinking about cinema, but there's also trying to, I guess, go back to a kind of cinematic experience where it's less about feeding you a narrative and you know, giving you so much, but having you meet us halfway.
Yeah, we're interested in themes like technological change, spiritual and physical transport, the spiritual experience of visiting a holy site, what that does to you, what that does to your body, more than your words, what that sort of excitement looks like, the agitation of taking this strange cable car, different ideas of technology. I'm always struck, I mean, I've seen this film a lot of times now, but one of the things that always strikes me is Gopika, the last woman coming down, who starts talking about the types of roofs in her mother's village, the difference between slate roofs and tin roofs and thatch roofs. And there's a way that I'm seeing her engage with this cable car, which to me, she looks so scared on it, but also seems to enjoy it at times. And I imagine myself into a place where I imagine that she's been on this maybe once before, maybe not at all. Stephanie has said before that she's never been on a plane. Maybe she's been on a boat, but this is a very disorienting, novel technological experience for her. But then I hear her talk about these roofs, and I think to myself, I have no idea what it would be like to live under these roofs. I have no idea which is a more technologically advanced roof, tin or slate. And so the strangeness of these different sorts of technology. Yeah, I don't have a concise. It doesn't make me think about any one particular thing, but it's just. I hope hopefully the film stages an encounter between these two types of technology, or these different ways of thinking, these different spiritual landscapes too.
Can I say one more thing about artistic objectives? We were also thinking a lot about the kind of art experience that, say, John Dewey would talk about in art as experience, as a kind of unfolding, as something that, film is, you're experiencing, there's so many layers here. There's their experience, there's our experience, and it's this unfolding of the experience, this multiple, visions, that is the work. And so I think we were thinking of art in that way, and so the duration of the shots contributes to that, the framing, we think.
And we also wanted the film, and I think the film has very basic delights in it. It's the delight of watching movement. That's such an exciting part of film, is things always in movement. Both, I always think of Roger Corman. One of Roger Corman's dictums is always have the camera moving, and yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to watch people having a good time. It's exciting to watch, people looking. These really simple, basic things that a lot of times get obscured in films because everyone's so worried about just putting so much on the screen that you lose some of the basic pleasures, I think.
This is a follow-up question.
No, I'm sorry. We have a lot of hands. Can we just try to get somebody else in there at the very back?
What was your choice to use film over digital to tell this story, which I'm glad you did? And also, could you speak up a little louder? It's very hard back here. I'm hard of hearing.
Sure. I'll talk about the conceptual interest. There's an aesthetic one as well. We knew that we wanted the full duration of the trip. And there's a correspondence between the real time, or the unfolding of the film, and also the role of the film. And so for us, that kind of parallel, the rope, the cable of the car and that technology with the technology of a 16 millimeter film camera rolling simultaneously, and thinking about the rope, it's kind of a rope, I guess. And so I think it was to further support the duration is not fully arbitrary then. The medium and the duration of the trip correspond. And then there are, of course, aesthetic reasons.
I think we both feel that film is beautiful. And we had the opportunity to. We had enough of a budget that we could afford it. And also there's a number of specific technical advantages that film has over video. Film has a very wide latitude range, and we're dealing with dark skin in shadows and bright backgrounds. So film lets us expose both for the characters and these backgrounds. Also, 16 millimeter has a very deep depth of field to it, so that we're able to have the characters in focus as well as these deep backgrounds.
I assume everybody heard that question, was whether the film has been shown to anybody who's in the film.
Not yet. How would we hope that they would receive it? Was that the second part?
Yeah, or Nepal in general.
Or in Nepal. That's a tough question, because we would hope, our greatest hope would be for a kind of self-recognition on the part of the film subjects. However, we understand that, at least in some previous work that I've made with some of the people you see, in which I edited it and I showed it to them, they would say things like, why didn't you make the cut there? You know, they would have these suggestions for editing, so I wonder if a response from them might be that, questioning this form and where it's coming from and the idea for it. However, in terms of Nepal, we did so far, thankfully in Toronto, there was a Nepali woman there with her husband, and she was quite excited by the film. She said it reminded her of her childhood, the ice cream eating, the basket. So for her, you know, all of those things that repeat, the things that you see have these other, you know, meanings, and then there's like, of course, what he's talking about, the technologies of robes. So we would hope that there would be that kind of generosity on their part. I guess we'll have to find out. I don't know.
I just have two quick questions about the process. One, did you script this in any way? I mean, I'm thinking that there are some things that people say that really resonate throughout the movie. The most important one I thought was when they talk about the length of the trip. And also, did you do many takes?
So we didn't script the film, but we did do many takes, and we spent 18 months editing, which is appalling. You know, that works out to like one edit every 45 days or something. Really shocking. But we did about 33 or 35 rides, and then we spent a long time sequencing them so that you would get just enough information at just the right times, parceling out information about the temple, about what country you're in, when to bring in the youth, when to bring in the goats. All these things went through many iterations.
But you didn't prompt things for people to say.
No, we didn't prompt. No, in terms of content of what they say,
Yeah.
no.
Did you direct your subjects in any way?
There's some mild here and there. I think from this cut, the final cut, the film, in maybe one or two cases we had made suggestions. But sure enough, I mean, the big question, the obvious question, and the elephant in the room is about their relationship to the camera. And that is directed, although not forcefully. We said that we would wish that they would, you know, engage with the environment and the trip and be less preoccupied with us, who were, you know, I guess we were this far apart. So there is that, which creates, I think it's a productive tension.
And we did small things, like we asked the musicians to, if they felt and so inspired to play at some point during the ride. Small interventions like that.
We did ask them to bring their sarangis, so.
Okay, we have time for one final question. Yes, in the middle, yes.
I was just wondering how you feel about the possibility that you've created a 2-hour satire on ethnographic filming.
Oh, that's magnificent. We never thought of satire. We can now include that ethnographic sci-fi satire. I guess, I mean, I feel that we still have, we have an appreciation for the traditions of ethnographic filmmaking, and I think that, I mean, do you want to answer that? I don't quite know how to answer the satire part.
We're definitely aware that it's a funny movie. That's definitely, and we love that about it. We love that it can go there. That I actually recently showed this to my advisor at CalArts, a man named Tom Anderson, who's also a filmmaker, And one of his comments was he was so happy to see low comedy against high spiritual content, that those could exist together in the same film. And I was very happy to hear that. I think that there is a way that the film partly borrows from ethnography and also partly borrows from structuralism and a few other approaches in a way that I haven't fully answered for myself what it does. And one of the things is, of course, right, this ethnography, like this emphasis that somebody like David McDougall has on hanging out while nothing's happening. Yeah, there's a bit of that in the film.
I mean, I feel like that's the whole ethnographic encounter in real time. I mean, it's not as, in my experience of it, it's not, they direct it in many ways. A lot of it's spent sitting around wondering, I mean, why we're sitting around so much, or, I think ethnography has always been interested in the banal. Well, there's also a tradition of focusing on events, but you could say the same thing for film. So I think in that way it is deeply ethnographic. I don't know about the satire part. I don't see it at odds with ethnographic practice either in the village or in terms of, heaven forbid, like some kinds of production, either textual or, obviously this functions in a completely different way, and we are thinking quite a bit about traditions within filmmaking, structuralism included, which is pretty evident, I suppose. So but I guess that's something to think about, the satire. I don't know.
One other thing we're interested in is creating a very open film, and of course all films are open to a certain degree, but we're interested in having a piece that different audience members can see wildly different things on the screen. That's exciting for us. Yeah.
Great. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for, but thanks for coming, and thank you to Pacho and Stephanie.